I must say, Olya, you and Mishka have been blessed with a harmonious family. I can't recall any conflicts. Everything is so peaceful. And your son is such a wonderful young man. With parents like you, it's no wonder he turned out so well. Olya and Irina, who bumped into each other at the store, found a spot on the stoop to sit down. Although Irina had to head to the next street, Olya had some time and, as often happens, felt the need for some idle chit-chat. Upon receiving the praise from her acquaintance, Olya let out a sigh as she gazed at the withering flowers in her front garden, swaying in the gentle breeze. "Looks like it's going to rain," she remarked, glancing up at the sky. "There's a gust picking up." Without waiting for a response, Irina stood up and grabbed her bag. "Well, I should be heading off. Make sure to drop by sometimes, considering how busy you are with work." "I will, Irisha, I promise," Olya replied. In a hurry, Olya entered the house. Dimka had already returned from work and locked himself in his room. Just the other day, he had broken up with his almost fiancée upon discovering she was seeing someone else. The separation had hit him hard, and Dimka still walked around in a gloomy state. As any mother would, Olya felt a deep sorrow for her son. He was only 2 years old, or rather, 20 now. It pained her to see him suffer so. "Mitya, you should eat something," Olya suggested. "Not hungry, Mom. Maybe later," Dimka replied. "Well, don't torture yourself. This too shall pass. You'll find someone special, and we'll plan the grandest wedding. Most importantly, you'll live happily ever after." Dimka mechanically chewed his food, just to have something in his mouth. "I'm going to Pashka's," he announced. "Go on, son. Maybe you'll have some fun," Olya encouraged. Once the son had left, Mikhail returned from work just in time. Olga, just as she had done many years ago, went to greet him, longing to embrace him, but she was met with her husband's cold gaze. "Mish, what's going on?" she questioned, setting the table while eyeing her husband's furrowed brow. He dined in silence, almost as unenthusiastically as their son, Dimka. "What's the matter with both of you? You both seem so downcast," she remarked. Mikhail tilted his head, his dark curly hair starting to show hints of gray as he scrutinized his wife. Olga's hair, too, was dark and slightly wavy. Since their youth, those around them had admired this couple, considering them both beautiful and content. However, it had been 7 long years of marriage, and Olga had yet to conceive. People began to squint their eyes and speculate, subtly suggesting they should investigate whether Olga was able to bear children. But Mikhail remained optimistic, assuring her that they would have a child, be it a son or a daughter, if they just remained patient and faithful. And indeed, after 7 years of being together, Olga finally became pregnant, and their relatives breathed a collective sigh of relief. But as Irina, their acquaintance, had mentioned during their recent conversation, Olga fell into a state of depression after giving birth. Her mood dimmed, and she seemed distant. She would hold her baby close to her chest and unexpectedly burst into tears. On the other hand, Mikhail seemed to soar with joy, his spirits lifted. He fluttered around like a dove, tending to their baby's needs, washing diapers, cooking porridge when Olga had no time. Gradually, Olga's sadness began to dissipate, and all the love that resided in her heart overflowed, pouring into her son and husband. Olga approached her husband and gently ran her fingers through his curly hair, but Mikhail withdrew his hand, evading her touch. "What's the matter?" she implored. "Please tell me." "I don't know yet," Mikhail replied, pushing his plate away. "But I yearn for the truth. I don't even know how to break it to you. Let me ask you directly, without any beating around the bush, and please answer me truthfully. Is Dimka really my son?" Olga struggled to catch her breath, her body freezing as her hand instinctively moved towards her neck, as if attempting to loosen the tight collar of her blouse. "Misha, why are you doing this? Who put you up to it?" she questioned, her voice trembling. "It doesn't matter who said what," he retorted sharply. Just answer me honestly, is Dimka my child or not? Her heart pounding, Olga felt a rush of emotions welling up inside her. He is yours. Yes, he is your son, she replied, her voice filled with conviction. Then why are you blushing? Why are you stumbling over your words? He pressed, his anger rising. I know that Dimka is my son. He's my blood regardless. But we're discussing something else now. Is he mine or not? Taking a moment to gather her composure, Olga mustered up the strength to respond firmly. He is, without a doubt, from you, she declared. Enough about it. Not only is my son upset, but you're also starting. Mikhail abruptly stood up from his chair, frustration evident on his face. The conversation isn't going anywhere, he muttered tersely. Olga's hands trembled as she began to put away the dishes, causing her to drop a fork and spoon in nervousness. She glanced over at Mikhail, who was quietly flipping through their family album, engrossed in the photos of their son and himself as a child. Olga wanted to remain silent, biting her lip and avoiding touching him, but inside, excitement and anxiety coursed through her. Why are you going through that? What are you comparing? What do you want to find out? She asked in a quiet voice. Mikhail sighed, his brow furrowing. They don't look alike at all, he muttered. Completely different in appearance. He hardly even resembles you. Trying to remain calm, Olga responded, Well, he looks like himself. It's not necessary for children to resemble their parents. Dimka turned out that way too, and his hair is also dark like yours. Mikhail cut her off abruptly. Don't talk to me like that. Let me tell you something. Until today, I never had even the slightest doubt, but now everything has changed. People who were with you on that business trip. Remember how you went for that 2-week training course over 20 years ago? A rush of heat flooded Olga's face as she looked at her husband, desperately searching for the right words to say. Yes, imagine. I bumped into a former classmate today. Guess who it was? She has been living in the city for quite some time, which is why we haven't seen each other in many years. So, Olya, who exactly is Yuri Georgievich? Misha, he's your son. Dimka is your son, the woman replied wearily. Olga, we can verify that. I'll do whatever it takes. Mikhail spoke calmly, but there was a trace of steel in his voice. Olga took a seat on the sofa, placing a white towel on her lap. She remained silent for a moment. There's no need for verification, Misha. It appears that this truth is destined to be revealed. All these years, it seemed to me that Dima was your son. I initially blamed myself and even secretly checked, thinking I couldn't conceive. They told me nothing was wrong, that I was healthy. That's when I realized our chances of having a child together were slim. She started rubbing the towel, folding it neatly and then straightening it again. I never intended to deceive you. I loved you, and I continued loving you. It just happened that way. And when I found out I was going to have a child, I convinced myself that it was yours. Even as he grew up and I could see the resemblance, I remained silent and couldn't bring myself to leave you. Please forgive me, Misha. Forgive you? Mikhail exclaimed, jumping up and nearly shouting. His cry resembled the wounded roar of an animal. You've been deceiving me my entire life. How could you? I didn't father a child, and you in some damned affair. I did, because I love you, because I never had a child with you. Olga interrupted, her voice quivering. You're lying. I don't believe you. I'm as healthy as can be. It's you. Olga experienced an unprecedented onslaught of curses for the first time in her life. As the torrent of foul language subsided, Dimka appeared at the doorstep, causing his parents to fall silent. The surprise evident in their son's face brought the conversation to a halt. What's all this shouting? What happened? Dimka inquired. Nothing, son. Go to your room. We'll handle it ourselves, his father replied. No, wait, interrupted Mikhail. Why are we treating him like a child? Why not be honest with him? He's an adult now. He deserves to know the truth. Mikhail approached his son and took his hand. Sit down, son. You're not a little boy anymore. You won't faint. Apparently, it was accidentally revealed that I'm not your real father, Michael continued. Your mother gave birth to you by another man. That's what's going on. This is ridiculous. Have you been watching soap operas? Dimka exclaimed, looking at his parents in disbelief. No soap operas here. This is our own personal movie, Michael responded, pacing the room and rubbing his neck as if a heavy burden had just been dropped. It turns out it's true. Your mom just confessed. Mom, is it true? Dimka turned to Olga, discarding the towel and rising to approach her son. It's true, son, Olga admitted. That's how it happened, and I'll tell you everything. Listen, Michael exclaimed, his voice filled with anger. The truth has come out, and you've been hiding it for 20 years. No, don't try to deny it. I loved you, but don't even dare to mention love to me now. You have 3 days to leave. This is my house, my parents' house. It's registered in my name. You can go stay with your sister or your mother in the neighborhood. I don't care. Confusion and sadness filled Dimka's voice as he asked, Mom, why would you do this? Stay calm, my son, Olga replied, her own voice trembling. Let's face this calmly together. We will leave this place and start anew. Why would Dimka go with you? Michael interjected, stopping in his tracks. It's not Dimka's fault. He will always be my son, even if I have more children. And I know, without a doubt, that I will have more children. Just not with you. He approached his son, his tone softening. Dima, stay here. This is your home, and I am your father. I raised you, and none of this is your fault. Dima, quickly pack your things, Olga urged, her voice filled with urgency. We're leaving now. I'm sorry, the boy said, turning to his father, but Alyanka deceived me too. Are all women like that? Dad, I want to stay with you. Dima, what are you saying? Olga shouted, her face turning red from anger. Don't be ridiculous. I'm your mother, your own mother. Are you really going to leave me? I've made my decision, the son calmly responded. Alyanka also betrayed me by dating someone else and getting married, breaking my heart. And it's not my father's fault that you cheated on him. So I choose to stay with my dad. That's right, Michael agreed, grabbing a pillow and heading to another bed. Don't worry, I won't bother your eyes anymore. I'm leaving today. Olga spoke quietly, careful not to wake her son, while neatly packing her things. And you know, Misha, I think it's for the best that you found out. I couldn't bring myself to do it, but now it's easier. I feel sorry for Dimka. He hasn't quite understood it all yet. He's hurt by what Alyona did, which is why he refuses to accept his own mother. And you, well, you're taking advantage of the situation. You can take whatever you want from your things, Michael said, splashing water on his face from the wash basin. I won't stop you. Fine then, we'll do it through the legal process, file for divorce, and let the court divide the property, Olga responded. Mikhail stood up straight, holding a towel in his hands. Well, why? Do you want a loud and public divorce? Can't we settle things without involving the court? Listen here, take whatever you want. And one more thing, I won't be revealing to the village that Dimka is not my biological son. As far as I'm concerned, he will always be my son, and your betrayal is our own private matter. Olga closed the suitcase and turned to Michael, finding solace in her husband's proposal. Above everything else, she wanted to shield Dimka from the gossip and judgment associated with their divorce. All right, let it be this way, she said, gesturing towards the pots and pans on the stove. I've prepared rasolnik, cutlets, and pasta for you. There are dumplings and minced meat in the freezer as well. It should be enough for now. I have to go to work. Then I'll visit Aunt Masha in the evening and spend the weekend with my mother in the district center. Mikhail, still clutching a towel by the wash basin, snapped back to reality as the door slammed shut. He sank onto the sofa, enveloping his head with his arms, and let out a muffled cry, as if an old wound had been reopened. Dad, what's wrong? Where's Mom? Dimka asked, his young voice full of concern. It's nothing, son. Your mother went to work, Mikhail replied, attempting to reassure his boy. Dimka refused to be easily convinced, insisting, Dad, I won't leave you. Don't think I'm too young to understand. I've also experienced betrayal. Mikhail sighed, his heart heavy with their shared pain. Don't worry, son. We'll get through this together. It caught me by surprise, too. I thought she would deny it, but she confessed, he said, a bitter grin appearing on his face. Look at you, so perceptive and mature for your age. 3 months had gone by, and Mikhail and Olga were officially divorced. Dimka still resided with his father, but the once vibrant house now felt empty. We'll get through this, son. Mikhail repeated the words to encourage himself and his son. What do you think, Dimka, if I bring a woman into the house? Mikhail asked, seeking his son's opinion. Dimka shrugged his shoulders. Well, you have the right to do so. I'm not old yet. I want to have a family, children. Mikhail approached his son and lightly patted his shoulder. You won't be jealous of your father, will you? I understand everything. Don't worry, I won't take offense, Dimka assured him. That's good. There's a lonely girl, or rather, a woman who is around 30 years old. Her name is Oksana. We've been seeing each other, but I want it to be a serious relationship, without any deceit, something real, Mikhail explained. I understand, father, I understand, Dimka responded. Thank you, Dimka. You're a true man, without any nonsense. I appreciate your support. Let's have a woman in the house who can cook for us, as we've let the place become messy. By the way, Dimka, have you spoken to your mother? Mikhail asked. She calls me all the time, asking how I'm doing. She even asked me to visit, Dimka revealed. Well, you should go, Mikhail encouraged. After all, she is your mother. The guilt of not keeping in touch with Olga weighed heavily on Mikhail. However, upon meeting Oksana, his heart began to feel lighter, and his resentment towards Olga started to fade away. Mikhail believed that he still had his whole life ahead of him, a life without deceit and infidelity. Actually, she hasn't called for 3 days now, Dimka admitted. Before that, she used to call every day. Well, why don't you call her yourself? Find out what's going on, Mikhail suggested. Dimka reached for his phone and dialed his mother's number, only to be greeted with the message that the subscriber was unavailable. It felt strange to him as his mother had always been easily reachable. The daily calls they shared had become a cherished habit, and he always assumed it would continue that way. However, it had been 3 days now without a single call and the message of unavailability. Mikhail suggested, why don't you call your grandmother? Maybe she knows something. Dimka dismissed the idea. There's no point talking to her. Her hearing is not very good. But just as he finished speaking, the phone rang. He answered in disbelief as he heard his grandmother's voice on the other end. Grandson, come, she cried out, her voice almost a shout. Confused, Dimka asked, what's wrong? Come, grandson, she repeated. I don't understand anything, Dimka exclaimed with surprise. The following day, he left work in the afternoon and picked up a hitchhiker who was headed to the district center. Where is my mother? He anxiously asked his grandmother, Anya. In the hospital, Olyeshka. She's been there for 3 days now, she replied. Shocked, Dimka questioned, how? Why? She had high blood pressure and then problems with her heart. She tried calling you and got upset when you didn't answer, Anya explained, her voice heavy with worry. Dimka was taken aback by the news. His mother had always been vibrant and healthy, radiating beauty wherever she went. When she and Mikhail walked together, people couldn't help but admire the stunning couple. That's why it was so difficult for Dimka to accept the fact that his mother was lying in a hospital bed. Go and visit her, be kind, my grandson. She's your mother, she carried you in her womb, urged his grandmother. Okay, Grandma, I'll go right away, Dimka replied, his mind racing with worry. He quickly left his grandmother's small apartment and made his way to the district hospital. As he walked, a loud voice called out behind him, "Who goes about without a jacket?" Dimka turned around to see a tall, imposing woman in a white coat. "I'm here to see Olga Seliverstova," he answered nervously. "Has her son finally shown up?" "Yes, her son. How is she?" the woman demanded, her tone impatient. Yes, that's me," Dimka stuttered. "I don't know how she is, I've just arrived." "Well, first of all, clean your shoes properly and put on a jacket. Then go to the 5th ward. I will prepare her for your visit, because surprises like this can be quite a shock," the head nurse instructed. "Now, don't just stand there staring. Listen to what I say." "Yeah, I'll do that," Dimka replied, his voice filled with uncertainty. As he stepped into the room, he made an effort to tread softly, his confusion deepening when he laid eyes on a pale Olga. However, her smile greeted him warmly. "Hello, son," she spoke softly, motioning for him to take a seat. "Mommy isn't feeling her best at the moment." Her once beautiful face appeared gaunt and filled with sorrow, prompting concern in her son. "Mom, I had no idea," he insisted, genuine surprise in his voice. "I called yesterday, but you were unavailable." Olga sighed, realizing the reason behind the missed calls. "Oh, my phone must have run out of battery. I haven't even thought to charge it since I arrived here." Curiosity and worry mingled in his gaze as he asked, "What's going on? Is it serious?" Shrugging her shoulders lightly, Olga reassured him. "No, it's nothing serious. They just need to fix a few things. A friend of mine, Margarita Igorevna, brought me here. She insisted I needed urgent treatment, so here I am." Recognition crossed his face as he queried, "Is she the tall, strict one?" Smiling slightly, Olga nodded. "Yes, that's her. She may be strict, but she means well. They estimate that I'll be discharged in about 10 days. But enough about me. How are you doing? What have you been eating? You look like you've lost weight. Perhaps you've met someone. Do you have a girlfriend?" Shaking his head, her son replied, "No, Mom, not yet." Olga's eyes filled with motherly concern as she spoke softly, "Oh, my son, I just want you to be happy. Don't worry about me, I'll manage." Dimka gazed out of the window, his eyes flickering to hide any trace of vulnerability from his mother. The sight before him weighed heavily on his heart, causing a lump to form in his throat. "Mom, please get better," he pleaded softly. "I promise to call you and Grandma every day." Taking his mother's hand in his, Dimka's voice trembled as he continued, "Please forgive me." His mother responded with understanding, acknowledging the recent heartbreak he had endured with his beloved fiancé and how this latest news had left him feeling lost. Dimka pressed his lips together, remaining silent for a moment as he gently caressed his mother's hand. Finally, he mustered the courage to express his feelings. "Mom, I love you." His words were met with a warm smile from Olga. "Son, I always knew it. I believed in your love," she replied affectionately. "I love you too. Go now, and don't worry." Overwhelmed with emotions, Dimka made a promise. "Mom, I'll visit you. I'll come tomorrow." Concern crossed his mother's face as she raised the practicality of his decision. "But what about work? You'll need to take some time off." Resolute, Dimka assured her, "I'll take a week off. I have a valid reason. My mom is in the hospital." Fighting back tears, Dimka left the room, relieved that his mother hadn't caught sight of his emotional struggle. Margarita Igorevna loomed before the resident's room, a formidable figure resembling a white tower that struck fear into those around her. The entire medical staff, including the chief physician, cowered in her presence. When she joined the team 15 years ago, Chief Physician Alexander Nikolaevich had uttered upon their first encounter, "A grandiose woman." Subsequently, she acquired the moniker Grandiose Margarita among the nurses. "Listen here, child," she declared, placing her sizable hand on Dimka's shoulders. "You should visit your mother bearing gifts. Understand?" It was only then that Dimka realized he had forgotten even a simple offering like juice. "I forgot. Honestly," he confessed. "Can I go and return?" I'll pick up some fruit. Very well, I'll permit it, and buy some flowers, she instructed. Okay. Dimka hurried out of the hospital, making his way to a flower stall in the center. Returning half an hour later, he retrieved his cape and reminded Margarita of her promise to spend time. These are for you, he said, presenting a bouquet. Not for me, for the mother of the flowers. You're an idiot, just like my idiots. You need to be taught everything, she retorted. Dimka reached into his pocket and offered a chocolate bar. Here then, this is for you. Well, that's different. We'll enjoy a sweet treat, she conceded before leading Dimka to the ward. Give the handover, kiss your mom, and promise to be a model son. Do you understand me? Dimka nodded, feeling compelled to obey every word under the intimidating gaze of Margarita. At home, Dimka sat at the table with his father for a while. The tea had become cold, so they would occasionally reheat it before putting the mugs aside again. Don't take offense, Dad, Dimka began. I've decided to move to my grandmother's. I want to be there for my mom when she comes back from the hospital. When I found out what she did to you, I realized you were the one who suffered the most, if I may say so. And now that she's weak, I want to support her. His father nodded calmly. I'm not offended, son. Olga has always been a good mother. I can't deny that. She was a good wife, too. Dimka interrupted gently, Dad, it's your right to remarry. I won't say anything. Concerned? His father asked. What about work, Dima? It's quite a distance to travel. Dimka replied confidently, I'll transfer and work in the district center. I've made up my mind. On weekends, Dimka relocated to his grandmother's house and started visiting his mother every day. Margarita Igorevna greeted the boy with a smile each time, opening the door to her room and announcing, Olya, meet your visitor. In her free moments, she would come in and sit on the bed. You have a wonderful son, Olya. You shouldn't have worried. Rita, I really appreciate your support. What about it, Olyashka? Remember 15 years ago when I was going through a tough time with Vidya? You were there for me. Now it's my turn to be there for you. I know all that, but Misha and I can't seem to reconcile. That's because you're too conscientious. Someone else would have held on until the end without confessing. So now it's up to you to decide. The most important thing is that Dimka is with you, supporting you with all his heart. Life, it seems, only brings us together when something goes wrong. We'll probably be apart again for many more years once you recover. Rita, we should meet sooner, if only we had a good reason. Dmitri, why are you in such a rush? You're moving around like a hurricane. What's the hurry? The head nurse stopped Dimka, who was almost running and not noticing anyone, with a bouquet of flowers. Oh, Margarita Igorevna, hello. My mom is getting discharged, so I'm in a hurry. I can tell. You're moving so fast that you almost knocked Katya off her feet. Dimka turned around and spotted a young nurse making her way towards the ward. Her blonde hair was neatly tucked under a pristine white medical cap, with a few loose curls swaying gently around her temples. Dimka couldn't help but stand still, transfixed by the nurse's presence, until she disappeared into the ward. Realizing he was in a rush and that his discharge wasn't ready yet, Dimka knew he would have to wait. Well, I'll just sit down there and wait, he thought to himself. Suddenly, he remembered the bouquets he had brought and decided to give one of them to the head nurse, Margarita Igorevna, as a token of appreciation for her help. Presenting the bouquet to Margarita, Dimka said, These are for you, Margarita Igorevna. Thank you for your assistance. Margarita smiled, gently correcting him. Oh, Dmitri, you've mixed up the bouquets again. Confused, Dimka asked, What's wrong? Margarita then explained, You see, the second bouquet is actually for your mother. But I have a better idea. Take that bouquet to the nurse inside. Katya knows how to support and comfort your mother, and she deserves some recognition too. Surprised by Margarita's suggestion, Dimka looked at her with gratitude. Yes, you're right. I'll give her the bouquet. And thank you, Margarita Igorevna, For your kindness, he expressed sincerely. In that moment, Dimka saw a different side of Margarita, not just as the esteemed head nurse, but as a sweet and compassionate woman. After bringing his mother home from the hospital, Dimka made the decision to leave his father and move in with his mother and grandmother. He made sure to visit his father, Mikhail, regularly, but his visits were always short and infrequent. It was strange for him to see a stranger in the house he had grown up in. The furniture was rearranged, different curtains hung on the windows, and there were new dishes. The most significant change, however, was the presence of Oksana, the new mistress of the house. Oksana was short and pretty, always wearing a smile as she tried to please Dimka. "Stay a little longer," his father would ask, hoping for more conversation. "Tell me what's new with you." "Everything is the same," Dimka replied, maintaining his silence. But as they walked out of the gate, he finally confessed, "Everything has changed. You can see for yourself." Mikhail was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. "What can I do? I didn't expect this." He trailed off. "Tell me, how is your mother? How is she feeling?" "She's fine," Dimka assured him. "She has a great friend who happens to be the head nurse at the hospital. She made sure my mom received proper treatment." Mikhail wanted to address the absence of complaints from Olga, but hesitated to do so. Instead, he decided to ask about Dimka's personal life, saying, "How are things going for you on the romantic front?" Dimka hesitated for a moment before responding, "Well, it's just starting, to be honest." "Any girlfriend?" Mikhail inquired. "Yes," Dimka admitted. 2 months went by since his mother's discharge from the hospital, and for Dimka, that day marked the beginning of his relationship with Katya. Following Margarita Igorevna's advice, Dimka gave the bouquet he had intended for her to nurse Katya, which sparked their acquaintance. Olga was aware that her son was dating a nurse from the district hospital, but she remained silent and did not rush to ask questions. Surprisingly, it was Dimka who wanted to initiate a conversation. "Mom, please, don't worry. I want to discuss something with you, which may be unpleasant," Dimka said, as Olga took a seat across from him. Olga nodded, indicating her attentive listening. "Dima, I'm all ears. Speak freely." "Anyway, I wanted to inquire about the man you've been seeing. You know, your biological father." "You want to know who your biological father is?" She gently stroked the tablecloth, as if trying to smooth out a small wrinkle. "I don't know much about him. We crossed paths by chance, and our relationship ended quickly. I did everything I could to ensure he couldn't find me. He didn't even know my last name. Sometimes he would be mentioned in the newspaper. He held a high position in the region at that time, and had recently gone through a divorce. I left and purposely didn't try to find him." "Well, if you want to learn more about him, the library has all the issues of our local newspaper. They often wrote about him, and there's even a portrait of him there. 10 years ago, I also learned about his death from the newspaper. His name was Yuri Georgievich Prokhorov. Son, understand that despite Yuri Georgievich being your biological father, I always loved your father, Mikhail, because he raised you and cared for you just as much as I did." "I know, Mom, I know. You don't need to explain. I'll go to the library, I'll read the newspapers. I just need to know something." Dimka hadn't been to the library since his school days, and back then it was only out of necessity. This time, he spent over 2 hours there, flipping through old copies, examining different faces. A few reports caught his attention, and even a photograph. He studied the face of a stranger and discovered familiar features within it. At first, he tried to recall where he had seen this face before, and then he realized that he simply resembled this man, who had no knowledge or inkling of his existence. Leaving the hall, he felt tired, but also a strange sense of lightness in his soul. He felt profound sympathy for his mother, father, and even for this stranger, Yuri Georgievich. He wanted to live in a way where he wouldn't make mistakes in 10, 20, or 30 years. "Hey, Olya, I made it," Mikhail announced, stomping into the hallway, unsure of whether to take off his jacket. "Hello, Misha. Take off your jacket, wash your hands, and come to the table. Let's have lunch together," Olya, dressed in a casual manner, called out, pulling up a chair. With enthusiasm, Mikhail quickly removed his jacket and headed to the bathroom, explaining, "I called you right away as Dimka told me. It's a big deal. My son is getting married, but I haven't met the bride yet. She's a good bride, a really nice girl. I think you'll get to know her better soon." Dima promised to come with Katya, maybe even tomorrow, Olya replied. Mikhail sat down at the table, coughing slightly. "Are you feeling sick?" Olya asked. "No, just a little sore throat. Anyways, the reason I stopped by was to discuss how we should organize the celebration, the expenses, and of course, the gift. Should we do it separately or together?" "I'm not sure. It's up to you. It's not like you're alone anymore," Olya replied. "I don't know if I'm alone or not. I was in a rush when I left Oksanka." "What's the connection between Oksana and our breakup, Misha? It's not her fault that things ended so quickly. Olya, I rushed into things, talking about having children and all. But now it's too late. My chances of having children are slim. I already have one son, Dimka, so maybe we can give it another shot, for the sake of the young ones, I mean. Well, let's at least spend time together." Olga covered her face with her hands, her shoulders trembling as she tried to hold back her tears. "Olya, please don't cry. I know it's shocking to hear something like this, and you know how I found out? Through Alka Koptiva, who is now Serebryanskaya after marrying. You remember how she chased me at school. I ran into her at a parts store in town. She divorced her husband and now owns one of the stores. When I was talking to the clerk, she recognized me and came over, smiling. One thing led to another, and she hinted that she's single now and invited me to replace. But I just laughed it off and told her that things didn't work out between us when we were young, so why bother now? She took offense at my words and dropped the bombshell that she had seen you. At first, I didn't believe her and just walked away, but then I decided to find out the truth. Well, I found out," Olga sighed, composing herself. "Let's have lunch." "Olya, now that we know the truth, let's give it another chance because I still love you and I know you love me too." "That's true, Misha. We do love each other, but we can't be happy together. We won't be happy now. Even if you say you forgive me, I'll always feel guilty and it'll drive us apart. No, Misha, it's not going to work between us. What makes you think I won't forgive you? Maybe I've already forgiven you," Misha responded. "You know, Misha, the more you love someone, the harder it becomes to forgive them. Let's make arrangements for our son's wedding. I'm incredibly grateful to you for bringing Dimka into our lives. You truly are the best father in the world." "Well, if that's what you want, it's not the right time yet." He gazed at Olga as if trying to etch her image into his memory. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Olga questioned, slightly unsettled. "It's been so long since I've seen you. It's hard for me to believe you're actually here. By the way, I've already transferred the house to Dimka's name. He's our rightful heir. All right, let's have dinner and discuss the wedding plans. I can't handle it all on my own. Most importantly, let's strive to be amicable towards each other throughout this whole situation."